iThrive's Geeky Podcast. Today I am with Chandra Biswas, who is a researcher at iThrive, and I am Manali Chindarkar, Chief of Research and Development. And as we always discuss a few research topics, we answer a few questions. So last time I think we discussed gut-brain axis with Maitri, and today what are we going to discuss, Chandra?
We're going to discuss about intermittent fasting and its benefits overall.
Okay. So we'll learn everything about intermittent fasting, and Chandra has written a blog on it, and which is why we are here and discussing it and sharing it with you all. So yes, let's start. I think many people have heard about intermittent fasting and they would like to try it someday, right? So let's understand what it is first.
Yes. So intermittent fasting has gained its popularity because it is one of the many good strategies of weight loss, and not only for weight loss but also it has many other benefits like it reduces inflammation and it also maintains different hormonal balances in our body. So basically talking about intermittent fasting, it is a eating pattern or a diet which cycles between patterns of eating and patterns of fasting. So here we do not actually specify the person to eat specific food, but we tell them when to eat food.
Right. So focus is more on the timing of eating and fasting.
Yes.
And not on the food type.
Exactly. So there is a pattern basically of eating and fasting. So there is a eating window when you can eat normally for which can range for a few hours to few days, and there will be a fasting window where you cut down on your calorie intake, and or you eat very less. So that is basically about intermittent fasting.
Okay, so there are times of fasting, there are times of eating, and yes, so like how do we decide, or are there different types, like how much time should they eat or should not eat?
So there are basically three types of intermittent fasting. Number one is the 16:8 diet pattern, where you fast for 16 hours straight, and then you eat for 8 hours, like you normally eat. Next is the 5:2 pattern, where you consecutively for 5 days you eat normally, and for the next 2 days you cut down on your calories or you take very less calories. Third pattern is eating alternate days and eating for alternate days and fasting accordingly. Like one day you eat normally and the next day you cut down on your calories. So these are basically the three types of intermittent fasting diet patterns.
Okay. And I tried finding out like how do we decide, right? Like if we have so many options available, but how do we decide for one person like what type suits them best? So I think it depends on their age, their gender, their pre-existing health condition, right? And even their past fasting experience, like how well they can tolerate. And because there are people who say that I can't fast, I need food every time, right? So it depends on that. And yes, when I tried learning about this, I also heard a podcast in which the podcaster clearly differentiated the difference between starvation and fasting. So it is different. Like starvation is because the food is not available because of its inaccessibility, and like it's involuntary, it's not in our hands, food is not available, which is why there are starvation like windows of it. And fasting is very intentional and voluntary, and consciously people decide that I won't eat today, or I won't eat these food groups, or I won't eat for that much time. So yes, fasting is very much intentional. Okay, so as I remember the blog's name, like how you started with this blog, it was the science behind intermittent fasting, right? So what actually happens in the body?
So the biochemical mechanism of intermittent fasting is actually a very complex process, and it involves a lot of metabolic and hormonal changes. So when our body is in the starving condition or in the fasting condition, so we use all the stored energy which is present in our body, and then there is a rise in insulin levels. So Generally what we do is that we use glucose as a source of our primary energy currency.
Right.
But when this glucose also starts to deplete in our body, we use this non-hexose substances in our body, and in this case we'll use the fat
Okay,
bodies, which will be converted to fatty acids and ketone bodies, and then we'll use those as our energy currency. So this shift from glucose as an energy currency to fat as an energy currency occur because of this depletion in the insulin level, which then helps to reduce the inflammation and related chronic diseases.
Okay, because as we know that inflammation gives rise to many health conditions. So
Right.
we are tackling that, we are addressing the root cause, which is why even the diseases can be reversed.
True.
Yes.
And there are also many hormones like HGH, human growth hormone, which is also whose level also increases because of this depletion in insulin level and also insulin level, and also because of this intermittent fasting. Like I previously mentioned, that it is a complex process, and many hormonal changes you can see.
Right. So is it like because of intermittent fasting, the inflammation is reduced, so the body is not triggered and agitated all the time, and then, as you said, the human growth factor is also stimulated, so the body can focus on growth, recovery, and healing.
Yes.
So that's the mechanism. Okay. Yes, so as we've understood the scientific mechanism behind intermittent fasting, I'd like to know what are the benefits of it. Like, why do people go for intermittent fasting and why should they go for it?
So, the benefit of intermittent fasting, it comes from reduction of the calorie intake, which it naturally happens because in intermittent fasting we anyway like cut down on calories. So we also see there are many physiological changes. So number one, I'll like to mention about the autophagy.
Okay.
Autophagy is a process of when our body cell it clears the dead and unwanted things from our body. So the name itself, the term itself means like auto means self, and phagy means eating. So our body cells, it's those damaged materials, and then it helps to prevent age related diseases and promote longevity and also reduce inflammation.
Okay, so it clears up everything that is not required and that could give rise to disease later on.
Yes.
Yes.
It also, like autophagy is also a mechanism through which our cells rejuvenate and repair. It can undergo the process of repair.
Right. Okay.
Secondly, so intermittent fasting also helps in different hormone regulation. So one of the most common hormones is the insulin. So in insulin, what happens is that when during intermittent fasting, there is a reduction in insulin. So it will help in insulin sensitivity, and also it will reduce inflammation and lower the risk of many chronic diseases, which you also previously mentioned, and chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes and many cardiovascular diseases.
Alright. I think because it is as you said, it is to do with metabolism as well as hormones. So when we talk about diabetes, when we talk about insulin resistance, there's a lot of hormones playing a role in that.
Very good.
And it is a metabolic condition.
Yes. Third is the fat oxidation. So intermittent fasting also leads to increased fat oxidation, because here we change our energy currency from glucose to fat,
Right.
to fat bodies. So there is oxidation of fats, and which help in the weight loss, and of course like improve the metabolic health of our body, and also increase the endurance.
Okay, so as you said that we shift the fuel source from glucose to fat.
Right.
I think that is what also happens in ketogenic diet. Right, but that is, we are choosing the foods, like we are restricting carbohydrate intake and we are having, like, it's not fasting condition. We do have food, but the source is different.
Yes.
And I think the mechanism here is same.
Yes.
Like not exactly, yeah, it is similar. So the change of fuel is done, but fasting window and food sources, these are different.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So intermittent fasting helps to protect the brain from many age-related cognitive function declines, and also it has also shown that intermittent fasting has helped to reduce different neurological diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's as well.
Oh, that's great. And when you said neuroprotection, which means it is protecting the nerves, and we also touched the topic inflammation, right? So, as in, intermittent fasting is helping us reduce the inflammation, and we know that the inflammation anywhere in the body gets communicated to other organs.
Right.
So, I think that also could be the mechanism here, that because of the reduced inflammation, even the neuroinflammation is reduced, which is why the prevention of those diseases.
Yes.
So that's great, Chandra. We learned so much about intermittent fasting, and there's no end to it. We can always learn more. But before we conclude this episode, I'd like to hear from you, like, how would you like to summarize it all?
So while I was researching, so I was actually trying to find out people who should follow intermittent fasting.
Okay.
But
Yes.
overall, intermittent fasting is a very powerful tool, but we should always keep in mind, and it's a disclaimer for our viewers, that intermittent fasting is not for all the people, and we should always consult our functional nutritionist before we change our eating pattern, or if we plan to change our diet, because especially when you have any underlying conditions, or if you are breastfeeding, or if you are
Right.
pregnant. So you should keep in mind of those things, and in short, intermittent fasting really has a line of benefits. It's like एक गोली में काफी सारे शिकार. So it's like that. So one of the powerful tool, yes, but also keep in mind that this tool might also be harmful to you if
Right.
not taken care of.
Right. I think I'd like to add here, like you said it beautifully. But when we talk about breastfeeding women, pregnant women, I think it also goes for children, adolescents, right? And when you said about previous conditions, like we need to pay attention to that. So especially if a person already has eating disorders, I think in that case, IF, intermittent fasting, won't be that safe.
Yes.
And which is why it needs to be chosen carefully. And if I'd like to sum it up all, then as you said, do not change your diet like on your own, right? So
Yes.
if you are educated well, or if you know about nutrition science well, at that times, even like be careful, like research well, and before changing your diet mechanism, like you can always consult an expert, because at times what happens, it could give rise to many disadvantages or deleterious effects later in life for the long run.
Yes.
So it's always better to be take an informed decision.
Yes.
Right. So thank you so much for this beautiful episode. It was a pleasure discussing this with you, and I look forward to more such interesting topics to be discussed at this platform. So yes, to all the audience, I'd like to ask you all to send in the suggestions in the comments, like what would you like us to cover, right? Anything that that makes you ponder, because I remember in childhood we always had this question, like why does our legs feel numb when we sit for a long time, or any conundrums that we think that why this happens. So let's all discover that and answer it for you all, right? So thank you so much for listening and viewing our episode. It was a pleasure. So thank you all, and if you're not already, then please go ahead and share our podcast with your loved ones. You can send in the comments, you can share, and always subscribe so you get notified when we come up with the next episode. Thank you all. Thank you, Chandra.
Thank you, Manali, for having me.